Chapter 1, Before the Fire. You need to listen to this bit, honestly. Actually listen, because none of what comes later makes any sense if you don't understand where this actually starts. And this is where half the room usually tunes out, because yeah, background, childhood, family, we get it. No, you don't. The context is everything. Before the fire, Danny didn't just grow up in a complicated household. He grew up in a collision. Not difficult, not messy, just two forces smashing into each other with a kid in the middle. On one side was his dad's world, soil in his blood, farming heritage, hard work, routine, emotional distance. Men who believed you showed love by working hard and not falling apart. You didn't talk about feelings. You didn't hug. You worked, you ate, you slept. Then you did it again the next day. Stability through repetition, strength through silence. This is old world stuff. Not cruelty, not abuse, just stone. You survive by not cracking. On the other side was his mom's chaos-fueled heart. A woman abandoned as a child, raised in institutions and in and out of foster homes, then dragged back into traveler life as a teenager by the family who gave her up to begin with no tools and no safety net. She knew too well what it was like to be unwanted, so she loved with intensity. Gifts, effort, overgiving, overcompensating, emotional competition, a desperate burning need to make sure nobody ever felt the way she once had. And that's not softness, that's fire. That's love with teeth in it. And this is the first thing people miss. Those two worlds aren't opposites. They were pressure plates, and Danny was born right between those two forces. That is not neutral ground. That shapes a dragon's mind from the inside out. You don't get to grow up normal in the middle of that. You adapt or you fall to shit. Before he ever had language for it, his nervous system learned a brutal lesson. Love is powerful, but it isn't guaranteed. Stability can vanish. If you want safety, you'd better build it yourself. Layered into that were the grandparents. His dad's dad came from that same soil world. A boar, solid, present. Someone Danny saw regularly, learned from, admired, quiet strength, consistency, purpose without noise. That's the template for endurance, for showing up without fanfare. His mom's mom was different, a sheep, absent from much of his mom's childhood, a vile woman deep in her core, but mutton dressed as lamb. And when grandchildren arrived, something switched. Need for attention, competition, division. But she brought magic, stories of travels and freedom, introduced tarot and fortune telling. She influenced him deeply, even if she wasn't always there. That's the other template. Symbol, story, movement, instinct. So early on, Danny absorbed two very different kinds of strength. Grounded endurance from one side, symbolic, instinctive magic from the other. He also found conflict in the instinct to build a home and the instinct to move, a world where he was taught how to see and feel the other side, but a world where he was also told to ignore it and knuckle down. Put those together in one kid and see what happens. That combination alone would be enough to shape someone. But it doesn't stop there. Danny grew up with three sisters. The eldest, a tiger, always there in the background, never close, civil, nothing more, nothing less. Emotionally distant. Then the younger twins, both sheep. The eldest twin was loud, chaotic, hungry for attention. The kind of kid who'd light a match just to get someone's attention. Good or bad, it didn't matter. She learned early how to manipulate and invent for optimum response. And it worked. The younger twin was the opposite. Quiet, observant, thoughtful, the forgotten one. But not by Danny. He bonded with the youngest twin through the noise, but not through silence. They talked, played, and invented their own games. Danny taught her to read, how to tie her laces, helped her with schoolwork, and became the protective big brother. That tells you everything. He learned early who was safe to sit beside and who needed someone safe to sit next to. He wasn't trying to dominate as a kid. He was mapping people, testing, pushing, learning who drained energy, who didn't. Watch first, move later, that's strategy. He was outspoken back then, that's important to say, but curious, questioning, expressive. And that caused friction. It escalated on occasion and he was told to just quieten down, to go outside, to entertain himself, to go calm down. Just ignore the unfairness and injustices. Enough is enough. Just get out. Not cruelly, not intentionally, just dismissed repeatedly, time and time again. Redirected out of the room, the house, even the family itself. That message landed early. Just a quiet message. You're on your own with this. And that message sticks harder than anyone realizes. And then there was the lifestyle. Different time, different rules. Danny was left on his granddad's farm, free-range childhood, playing in barns, exploring fields, spending time with the animals, climbing trees. No supervision in the modern sense. Just a whistle when it was time to come back inside for food or to go back home. As he got older, he slipped further into the forest that was bordering the farm. Alone, roaming, learning terrain, learning silence. This is where the land starts imprinting. That freedom mattered, which is exactly why what comes next hits so hard. Just before he started second school, his hip flared up out of nowhere. Pain so bad he couldn't walk properly. At first, Danny's complaints were dampened by his sister's immediate need for the attention, then told to stop complaining about it. He was in agony and eventually rushed to hospital. Weeks in a ward on his own. No siblings, no family, no friends, no forest or farm, no animals or even the view of a tree from the window. Danny grew up in the country. He went to school in a small village. This wasn't just hospital, it was isolation. It was seeing a world where there were no fields and only concrete for as far as he could see and no one but strangers coming and going. Just a kid lying there while they tried to work out what was wrong. From forest to white walls, from movement to stillness. Eventually, after countless tests, needles, scans, x-rays, they discovered he had developed fluid on the hip, immense pressure, agonizing pain, nothing to fix, and now something he just had to live with. Something that could affect his other joints and something he couldn't just escape from. No enemy to fight, no cure, no solution, just endurance and acceptance. And here's where the first real internal conflict begins. When the external world breaks, when your body fails, when your freedom is removed, in isolation. A time before phones and tablets, no TV. You don't just get bored, you go inward. You learn to sit with sensation. You learn to dissociate. You learn to survive inside your own head. This is where most people would crack or scatter. But Danny begins to build. He begins to lay groundwork. When he came out of hospital, school didn't help. He lived outside the village, on a hill. Farmers and people who worked in the city on one side, travelers and gypsy families on the other. Danny fitted neither, so he had only one real friend during his first school. And then that friend went to a different second school. So when schools changed, he found himself alone in a whole new world. It was in that second school the labels began to arrive. Evaluations, being called from class, sitting with more strangers than his parents. As time went on, Danny's dad didn't want to hear it. He didn't understand or he didn't want to. It was Danny's mom who stepped in and supported him. Depression, anxiety, psychosis, schizophrenia, paranoia. They didn't explain anything. They just told him other people didn't know what to do with him either. Names without maps. Danny's mom sorted the appointments he needed, collected and administrated the medication. She did what she could. But Danny, his therapy was outside. And that's when the travelers appeared. This bit is fucking important. Life had gone still. Quiet, flat, Danny alone, and this is where the fire is about to start. Because when things are stagnant like that for a dragon, chaos starts to call. You can feel it before you understand it. That itch, that hum, that sense that if nothing moves, something's gonna break. The travelers were chaos with structure, and that's the dangerous bit. Chaos with rules, a group of mixed-age teens, energy, inclusion, intensity. They pulled him in. There was magic. There was violence. There were rules, obvious wrongdoings, status, fear. But there was also education. He learned how to fight quickly, how to hold eye contact, how to stand his ground, how to speak with certainty instead of volume. That one matters more than people think. He learned to speak without talking. And if you say it, mean it. And if you mean it, you follow through. He earned the nickname Chuck, given in association with his granddad Charles. Not a self-chosen name, bestowed by the traveler elders. They knew Danny's granddad. Everyone did. And they all had nicknames, even the adults. This was proof he belonged, accepted, respected. Kids at school didn't bother him anymore. People in the village knew who he was. Reputation mattered, and other traveler families began to notice him. Travelers are a little like gangs, but bonded by blood, and they took it seriously. Any outsider wasn't just casually accepted in. Chuck had the blood on his mother's side. He was a traveler that way. But his family weren't travelers traditionally. His world didn't begin that way. Now it was dogs, horses, girls, and fights. Now it was think fast or get fucked. Move fast or get fucked. And Chuck did. Chucky wasn't a fighter. He was a punch bag, one that became stronger over time. And that didn't go unnoticed. By the time he was in his final year of second school that he rarely attended, he had fully integrated himself into this gypsy lifestyle and traveler family. He spent all his time with them. He was one of them. That's why the betrayal mattered. Because this wasn't just a gang of mates turning on him. This was acceptance turning on him, his family, his community. And that cuts deeper than fists ever do. And the head boy was a dragon too. This was dragon versus dragon, two expressions of the same force, one rooted in intimidation and hierarchy, the other moving toward fairness and sovereignty. Same fire, completely different direction. They came, caught Chuck unaware, in his own home, in his parents' kitchen. As soon as the door was open, they rushed him, beaten, bloody, bruised, broken, in an unprovoked blitz attack, 5-on-1, for overstepping untold rules. Danny had been seen talking with members of a rival family, a conflict Danny wasn't even aware of, but paid the price anyway. Dismissed, outcast, shunned, now tormented and heckled, laughed at and mocked. And eventually Chuck faced that dragon again, the dragon who was his brother, his family, the one who raised him up. Danny faced him, he called Danny out, demanded a one-on-one. The Traveler family disliked the idea of looking weak with a 5-on-1 fight. But something snapped in Danny that day, and he made an example of that dragon, a severe one. And when they came back again, this time 3-on-1, Chuck took the hits. He was made for it. But when Danny walked away, the other three did not. Danny made a statement, and statements like that echo, and it echoed across the families. Don't fuck with Chuck. That moment locked something into place. I am not breakable. I won't just step aside. But once you prove you can't be controlled, systems built on control turn on you. That's just physics. And that's where everything shifts. Because B walks in. And she was a fucking dragon too. Not some random, not a filler character, not a rebound, not a phase. Another dragon. Different fire, different lesson. And I'm not saying dragons magically sniff each other out or any of that bollocks. Same age, same town. Of course there were other dragons around. That's not the point. The point is which dragons mattered and why they mattered at all. Timing is everything. Because look at what he was coming from. A boar raised by a boar on one side. Duty, endurance, silence, provide and endure. A tiger on the other. Intensity, emotion, volatility, protect at all costs. An older tiger's sister, two younger sheep sisters. That family unit only ever worked the way it did because of exactly that mix. Strong, yes. Loving in its own way, yes, but never truly designed to hold a dragon. No blame, just reality. Too much push, too much pull, too much dismissal on one side, too much emotional pressure on the other. No middle ground, no mirror. So when Danny steps out into the world, he doesn't actually know what a dragon is. Not properly, not in action. And then almost immediately, two of them walk into his life. Tell me that's coincidence. The Traveler dragon comes first. That one shows him something brutal and necessary, that there's a warrior in him, that he isn't breakable, that he can take hits, stand his ground, and walk away with his spine intact. That lesson is ugly, violent, chaotic, but it's essential. Without it, he doesn't survive what comes later. That dragon forges the fighter, then B doesn't bring war, she brings home, and not in a fairy tale way, in a grounded, almost boring way, which is exactly why it mattered. Boring is underrated. They didn't party, they didn't burn the world down. They went to work, they cooked dinner, they shared space, they argued about normal shit. They settled into a rhythm most people don't hit until they're married with kids. They were young, and yet somehow living like an old couple. And that tells you everything. And that's the lesson she gave him. Not passion, not chaos, but how a life actually fits together. How home looks when it's quiet, how stability feels when no one's posturing, how you build a nest instead of constantly defending territory. So look at what's happened here. You've got a family structure that shaped him but couldn't contain him. Not because it failed, but because it was never built for a dragon. And then, at exactly the right moments, two dragons show up and finish the job. One teaches him how to fight for himself. The other teaches him how to live with someone. That combination matters more than people realize. Because without the first, he gets destroyed. And without the second, he never learns what he's actually fighting for. That's not romance. That's foundation. And that's why B isn't just the first girlfriend in this story. She's the moment the dragon learns that survival isn't the end game. Building a life is.